Blog Talk Radio.
Blog Talk Radio.
There is a mystery lurking the forested areas of the world. Many have seen something, but what is it? Are they seeing known animals? They claim they walk upright, like a human. There are so many eyewitnesses. Can they all be wrong? Is someone just playing a trick on people? Or is it possible a large bipedal being could exist in the forests of the world? You have a decision to make. Do you believe it exists? These are the topics we discuss on Sasquatch Watch Radio. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is April the 2nd, 2013, and we have a great show for you tonight. And first of all, I'll welcome my co-host to the air, the Creature Seeker. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Billy, and how are you doing?
Doing just fine. Well, won't you go ahead and introduce this wonderful, great guest we have tonight?
Sure thing, Billy. This next guest I've admired for a long time, ever since I've seen the TV show on Nat Geo, and I feel very fortunate that he will be speaking at Creature Weekend this year, May 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and it's Pat Spain. He's the host of the Beast Hunter TV show. And if you haven't ever seen any of those episodes, I urge you to go out and rent them or whatever you need to do, because they're some of the most entertaining programs on TV. So without any further ado, Pat Spain, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate the kind words.
No problem, Pat. You know, I think one of the things that stands out, that makes your show stand out from other shows is that you are, the real deal. So you actually go out there and you traipse through some really foreboding and godforsaken areas looking for cryptids. And I have to ask you, how did you get into this? So,
it's a great
what
question.
made you want to say, I'm gonna, I'd love to wade through that swamp just to see if I can collect some evidence,
Well, I'm the type of person who always wants to see everything for themselves. I want to experience it all, and I don't like to. I love to read about it in the books, but it's a completely different thing to experience it yourself. This took me into marine biology, which is what I majored in college, because there was so much that I couldn't read about the ocean, so I had to go out and find it for myself. I worked different marine bio jobs since I was 16. Actually, moved out of my house at 16 and moved up to a barn in southern Maine to work a marine bio job. And this just kind of led into just this realm of some other animals, some ones that are even less known than the ones in the deep oceans. And as I started kind of reading more about cryptozoology and reading about some of these animals and kind of debating with my scientific side the plausibility of which ones might be there, which ones are mistaken identity, and which ones are just myths, my grandparents saw that I was starting to get into this, and they started seeing some of the, Bigfoot books and other things kind of lying around the house, and my grandmother would shake her head and go, "Oh, you're just like your Uncle Charlie." And I didn't really know, I had no idea what she really meant by that until I was in, probably towards the end of high school, when she gave me a whole bunch of Charles Fort's books and said, this is, and I said, "Oh yeah, I've read, I read this before, the Book of the Damned." She was like, "Oh, that's your Uncle Charlie." So it all kind of started coming together, and that got me even more into crypto stuff. And biology just seemed like a natural choice for me, marine biology especially, but I loved reptiles and anything I can get my hands on, really. And then this kind of side project was just looking for evidence, of some of these more bizarre animals out there, and some of the ones that are just out of place. I think that's a large number of the crypto sightings are things that are, known animals just in the wrong spot. So kind of all cross paths in Beast Hunter.
So can you give me an example of an animal that's sort of misplaced?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I can use myself. So I found a cotton. Well, yeah, that too. But I found a cottonmouth when I was in 7th grade, or no, younger than that, I'm sorry. I was in about 5th grade, and found it in upstate New York, which is far outside of the realm, or out of their range of where anyone would say, talk to a bunch of herpetologists on the phone, and they're like, "Oh, no, kid, you caught a northern water snake." And here I am with my guides that I'd gotten from the library, and I've got the snake sitting in front of me, and I'm going, I really don't think I do. And I ended up bringing it to a herpetologist who finally did confirm that it was a cottonmouth, but then accused me of bringing it up from North Carolina or something.
Oh, wow.
So, that's just one example, something kind of small. But then there's mountain lions that people spot. That one that was hit in, I think it was either Rhode Island or Connecticut last year, was a great example. For years the authorities have been saying there are no mountain lions in New England, they're all gone, and then you can't stop the evidence of one dead on the side of the road.
So your degree is actually in marine science?
Yes, it's a wildlife biology degree within a focus on marine science.
Oh. Now, Billy, did you have any questions for Pat?
Well, I think one of the biggest questions that everybody probably has is, what did it feel like to put your hand in a basket of bullet ants?
Oh, the bullet ants. That's, the funny thing is it was my idea to do it. And it was the tribe that I was going to live with in Brazil, the Satere Mawe. They're amazing, just really incredible people, but very wary of outsiders. If you look at the history of native peoples throughout South America, you understand why. They haven't exactly been treated the best by outsiders. So other places that I'd been, the tribes had been so welcoming and so open and so willing and excited to talk about their customs. And I just saw that this was going to be a roadblock, that I needed to do something to get in with this tribe and gain their trust and kind of get them to see me in a respect, to see that I was being respectful of their customs and that they could respect me enough to tell me about this. So I convinced our production company to let me do this ceremony. And I'm very, very glad that I did it, but I'm also glad that I don't have to do it again. Those guys do that 20 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just the absolute worst pain you can ever imagine. It was 24 hours of mind-melting pain. I was hallucinating. I headbutted our producer. I tackled our sound guy and just started screaming for about 15 minutes just at the top of my lungs.
Well, Pat, that sounds like me and Bruce on a normal day.
Nice.
I know, Pat.
Just a fun Saturday night.
You could have spared yourself some pain just taking a couple shots, and it would have been on.
Well, that's what I was saying. This is like the rite of passage into here. And it's like, in America, you go out to the bar on your 21st birthday, have a few shots, you feel a little hungover the next day. Our idea of 24 hours of pain is a little different than theirs.
Wow. Now, I saw the clip, Pat, where they're actually, it looked like they were propping you up. So you guys were like line dancing or something. And after, after you stuck your hand in the mitt, it was just I don't know. It just kind of looked like you were about to faint. Was that? It must have been really excruciatingly painful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just completely leave yourself. Like, your mind is somewhere else during that. It is such intense pain. And you've got the other initiates there with you who are doing the ceremony, and then one of the elders of the tribe stands on the other side of you, and they kind of lead you in the dance that you have to do.
Wow.
And, yeah, they're holding you up. They're supporting you, kind of sending you good vibes and just letting you know that there's someone else who's going through it too. But by the time those gloves come off, you wear them for about 5 minutes.
Now, Pat, is there, like, do you lose points if you cry like a little girl?
Yeah, actually it doesn't count. If you scream at all during the ceremony, if you make any noise while the gloves are on, then it doesn't count, and that's not one of your 20.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, so most of the people, the guys said that they end up doing it about 30 times.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and a lot of people, this isn't something that everyone in the tribe does. This is only if you want to be a hunter, which is the highest position. So you marry the best, you have kind of the best place to live, you're considered really respected. But most people don't do it.
Oh, I
wow.
understand that.
Yeah, I talked to one guy the night before who was, so we were speaking through a translator, but he goes, I hear you're doing the Tukandera. I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, my God, it is the worst thing you can ever imagine. Imagine the worst pain you've ever been in, and that doesn't even come close to touching it. He goes, and that's only the first hour. Then it gets worse. So he's just talking this up, and I was like, oh, yeah, thanks, man. And then after this, he goes, but, you can do it. He's like, I've seen you. I've watched you for a couple of days. You can do this. You'll get through it. I was like, oh, thank you. I said, so you've done it? He goes, yes. I said, you did it 20 times? And he just starts laughing and goes, hell no. I did it once. Then I said, I can drive a boat.
Wow. Now, Pat, you did on your show. It was on for one season?
Yep, 5 episodes.
5 episodes. And do you want to briefly describe those episodes?
Sure, absolutely. We filmed them in a different order than they aired. So in my mind, they'll always happen in the order we filmed them. So we went to Africa, and I went all over West Africa, Congo, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic, kind of looking for the cultural significance and the area that supposedly has Mokele Mbembe, the alleged dinosaur of West Africa. And then we headed up to Canada for the sea serpent Cadborosaurus, and then to Mongolia, looking for the Mongolian deathworm, to Sumatra for orang pendek, and then to Brazil for the Mapinguari.
Oh, yeah, wow. Out of all those animals that you research, those 5,
mm-hmm.
Which one do you think has the best chance of actually being found?
Oh, Caddy, with no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind. As a marine biologist, almost any marine biologist that you speak with that studies large animals will tell you that there's still probably, close to a dozen large animals, and by large I mean greater than, 10 feet, left to be discovered in the ocean. And, they'll either be some type of cetacean, some type of pinniped, potentially another huge shark. I mean, you think the whale shark was just found in the 70s. And
wow.
That thing's massive.
That's whale shark's about 50 feet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 50,
wow.
60 feet long. So, I mean, that's huge. And to have just found that in the 70s, and we're still finding new species of dolphins all the time. There's always the rumors of the long-necked seal coming up. That was the Helveman drawing, and among others who have researched this. And, you still hear about different sightings of this every now and then. And yeah, there's just so much that we don't know about the oceans. I mean, I was able to go down in a 3-man sub about 1,000 feet underwater, which was hands down the coolest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
And it's a totally different world. I mean, it's something that it's hard to even explain because it's nothing like the Earth that we know. And you think it was just this year. It was less than a year ago, in 2012 when they got the first footage of a live giant squid.
Wow, that's true.
Yep.
We have a question from someone in the chat room.
Sure.
I guess while we're on the subject of sea creatures, he asked. I guess this might not be so much of a sea creature as a lake creature, but his question is, does he have any idea? Meaning, Pat, does he have any idea what champ or Ogopogo might be? Giant eel or something entirely different?
Yeah, so there's always been, I grew up in upstate New York, actually just outside of Albany, and, there was always this talk about champ in Lake Champlain, and the giant eel thing never really held water for me, pun intended, just because there's so many fishermen on the lake, and there's so many chances to find something like that. I kind of always went with, misidentified moose, because when moose have lost their antlers, which they do every year, they look really weird. I've been in a kayak swimming along as one kind of swam alongside me, and it definitely does. You got to look twice. If it's something that you just glance out of the corner of your eye or you see in a picture after you get it developed, it's going to look a little bit funky. With that said, there's always that bloop recording that they got that I've never been able to explain away. I just have no idea what that sound could have been made by in there. I know there was recently something on, I want to say it was on Cryptomundo, kind of recently, where they were talking about that particular recording, and there was maybe a possible natural explanation for it, but that still kind of baffles me.
Yeah, they never did identify that, did they? I think they tried to explain it away as something geographic in origin, or something from the Earth crust or something like that. Yeah,
it I don't know. I mean, and this is maybe where the hope overweighs the science in me, but it just always sounded too biologic for that explanation. It doesn't feel right. There's something about the immediate kind of gut reaction to seeing something and or hearing something in this case, and that just didn't seem like a right fit for the answer to me.
Wow. Now, are you familiar with Peter Costello? His book In Search of Lake Monsters.
Yes.
So that was the first book that introduced me to cryptozoology, and I used to read that until the book was tattered. And so, there's some pretty interesting photographs in that book, but there was a photograph of what a Cadborosaurus that was extracted from a whale stomach.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know if that was a hoax or if that was an actual photo?
So we investigated that in Beast Hunter. That was in the Canada episode while we were up there, and everything we could find, everyone we talked to kind of around that really was very believable in my mind, and it did seem like a real photo. I think it was a real animal that was that whose picture was taken there. Now, a lot of the critics say that it was the classic it's a decaying basking shark. Anything that's found anywhere is a decaying basking shark. Mm-hmm. You think there just have to be tons of dead basking sharks on every beach in the world. But I can't rule out that it was some known animal that in a weird state of decay, kind of like the Montauk monster a few years ago that was just a raccoon. As animals decay, they do look weird, but that photo is really intriguing to me, especially the fluke and the shape of the head. I can't rule out just based on the picture that it was a spinal, some part of the spinal cord that's just bent a little bit funny, or it's an odd angle or something, just having that one photo, but it's pretty interesting evidence to me.
Billy, did you have any questions?
Actually, Donna Fink had a question. She wants to ask him what he thinks the guy was filming for 10 years in the Cove in Florida that was featured on Monster Quest. Do you know what she's talking about?
I do. So that individual has actually contacted me since Beast Hunter. Seems like a really genuinely nice person, very interested in what they're finding. I like anyone who's getting out there doing any type of biology. I mean, that's the thing that often gets overlooked with cryptozoology is it's getting people outside and getting them interested in the natural world, and it really contributes to mainstream biology by having, you know, amateur or expert people out there looking into these animals. And a lot of times we'll find out something we didn't know because of this research. Now, in the case of this in Florida, the footage that I've seen and the kind of people that I've spoken with about it, it does seem like it's a manatee with an injured tail. But not having investigated it myself and not having been down there, I can't say that with certainty, but that's kind of the way it looks to me.
Okay.
You know, Pat, there were two I guess, peculiarities about the creature in that film. One is the tail that was shaped like a trident. Now, in a lot of early drawings, sailors depicted sea monsters as having a tail that ended in a trident. So that was kind of interesting. But then I guess the muzzle seemed different than a manatee's muzzle.
This one down in Florida?
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, not having investigated it myself, but I usually apply Occam's razor, which, you know, the most likely, the answer that seems the most likely is probably the real answer. And in that case, I mean, just in the area where they are, with that many manatees and with the similarities, I mean, yes, maybe it is a subspecies, but we know that manatees get hit by boats so often, and we know that they can withstand a lot of damage and still survive. So that just seems like the likely, again, can't rule it out. I haven't investigated it myself, although I'd like to, but that just seems like kind of the likely thing to me.
Well, I guess that kind of would roll into another question. That's something you'd like to investigate. So I guess the question is, are you going to return, and is there going to be more Beast Hunter episodes?
Well, there's so much more that I want to investigate, so many new places I want to go to. There's the allegedly flying humans in the island of Saram, which I'd love to get out to the island of Saram. I think there's so many things that we don't know out there, and probably a couple new bat species that can account for these flying human stories. Those giant bats do look very eerily human, especially at night. Mm-hmm. Oh man, just so many different places. As far as new Beast Hunter episodes go, I'm down if they are. But there's been a lot of changes at Nat Geo, and they've always been incredibly supportive and really nice. It was a dream come true to work for them, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's just kind of getting everybody on the same page, getting everyone in the same room, as they say.
I completely understand. And I guess my next question to you, Pat, is how are you doing? Because we know that you had a little bit of a time there with some issues and
the series definitely ended with a surprise for me. I found something I wasn't expecting.
Right.
Yeah, so I did end up getting diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer shortly after the show wrapped. And I really credit the show I credit Beast Hunter with saving my life, because the reason that I really pushed the doctor so hard to get a diagnosis was because I had been traveling to so many weird places and eating so much bizarre food and, you know, living in such odd conditions. I did pick up a parasite in Africa. I got a couple other, you know, illnesses here and there. So I really wanted to know what this was. And when the doctors were saying, oh, it's stress, oh, it's an allergy, oh, it's this, it's that, I needed to get down to a root cause because, you know, I know that I was exposing myself to some pretty funky stuff. So I pushed. Yeah. And once I got that diagnosis, it was a shock. But yeah, I had a whole bunch of surgeries, spent a couple months in the hospital, went through chemo, and everything seems to be going good. Knock on wood.
That's great.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, the doctors tell me that if it wasn't for all the scars, that it would look like I was never sick. So that's a great feeling.
Well, you're lucky, Beth, because I picked up a parasite in Boston, and I ended up dating her for like 3 months. So.
That's a much more dangerous kind than what I had.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that, Bruce. That can turn permanent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. So, Pat, you know, what was which one of those was your most difficult? I think I know the answer to this.
Actually, I think it kind of surprises people. Sumatra was hands down, no doubt, and I overuse the hands down expression. Sorry, but Sumatra was just the toughest shoot I've ever been on. It was it poured rain for 2 weeks. I mean, the footage doesn't look it because you get those couple seconds of sunshine that we film in, but the entire crew and myself, we were just soaking wet for 2 weeks. We all lost the first few layers of skin. I had, it was rotting off of my feet. We were covered in leeches the entire time. They were falling out of the trees. They were crawling on you when you try to go to the bathroom. It was just really, really rough conditions. It was a couple days hike from the nearest village, which was, really rough in and of itself, in the area where we were in Kerinci Sablat National Park. And it was gorgeous. But, yeah, that was massively rough conditions.
Yeah, it's amazing that the production crew, because when you watch the show, everyone gets into you. You're the host of the show, but it's amazing to think, you've got a production crew, you got camera guys, so all these guys are going through the same thing you are.
Oh God, yeah. So a couple good stories about that. Our camera guy in Sumatra, his name's Simon Ray, and he's the main cameraman from Man vs. Wild.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So everything that Bear Grylls does, Simon does with like a 50-pound camera on his shoulder.
Shoot.
And he's just the toughest man I've ever met in my life. I mean, he's just nails. He's shorter than me, but he's just, absolutely a solid muscle and so polite and so nice and soft-spoken. But then you get out there filming and there's thorns hitting him in the face and snakes climbing all over him, and he's just stony-faced, charging up a waterfall that I'm struggling, and he's doing it one-handed. It was just unreal. And then our sound guy on every episode was one of my friends. His name is James Bickersteth. He's the one who kind of keeps everything light, and he'll make you laugh when everyone's soaking wet or hasn't eaten in 2 days. And James is always joking around. And one day, towards the end of Brazil, we were walking through really dense forest, and it was massively hot and humid. I was covered in bees, and I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Like, you could barely see skin through how many bees were covering me.
Wow.
And I was holding this huge megaphone because we were playing Mapinguari calls, out into the forest to see if we could get anything to call back. And I'm getting tangled on trees, and I'm falling. And finally, I just turned around to the guys, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And James looks at me, and I look down, and I see that he's wearing a poncho with probably 80 pounds of sound gear, his headphones, and like trailing 10 feet of wires. And he just looks at me and goes, "Really?" All right, yeah, sorry. Sorry about that.
Wow.
But that was all he needed to say to absolutely put me in my place.
Wow. Pat, the Mapinguari is supposedly, I think, tell me if this is wrong, the Megatherium?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm convinced that not only is that what it is, but that they did survive at least until very recently down there.
Can you describe for us? I mean, the Megatherium is, that's a serious animal. Can you describe what it would look like if were it alive?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a 10-foot-tall ground sloth, something that would look like a cross between a bear and an anteater. I mean, unreal to think that this thing might actually be out there, and I am chomping at the bit to get back down to Brazil and go a little bit deeper into the forest than we were, because I really think that we could find at least recent remains of them. It was wild. I honestly went in there pretty skeptical, thinking that, these are stories that are passed down. These guys are phenomenal storytellers in this tribe, which is why I really wanted to gain their trust to do the, bullet ant ritual, to get them to tell me these stories, because they can pass them down with a degree of accuracy to find, water sources from decades ago that they can describe and then locate. Just incredible storytellers. So this is what I went down there thinking, that we'd hear some amazing stories and I'd find some, great animals. It's Brazil. You can't help it. But what I found was people who, the descriptions that they had of this animal, and one of the eyewitnesses that we found, when I showed him a drawing of a ground sloth, his eyes lit up. He got so excited and, actually turned away from the camera and grabbed a bunch of his friends and was like, come here, you have to see this. This is what I saw. This is, because he'd been trying to describe it to them. And it was like, wow. This is it. This is exactly, and just that excitement, that raw, not pandering for the camera, not savvy, not like he's getting money from us to say this, anything like that. It was unreal to see that expression and to genuinely believe him. And then they told us these stories, and some of it doesn't always translate to camera. I've got to say, Icon, who's the production company, is phenomenal. They're the same guys who do River Monsters.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I love them. Love them. They've become some of my closest friends. They're just awesome people. Still see them pretty regularly, and they did a great job. But there's only so much you can show in 52 minutes, and also you've got you're telling a story, so there's some things that just don't fit in that. And some of the things that we were hearing from people were just you kind of piece it together and. Whereas, so they have this legend, this creation story about, and it's kind of comparing humans to cicadas. We come from underground, and all of the other animals came from the clay, and we're all made of the same substance is what it boils down to. And that's why we can eat every animal. That's why we can digest all the animals, because they're all made of the same thing as us, except the Mapinguari. The Mapinguari is made from this, sacred tree that they showed me, and this is what this is made of. That's why no one could ever hunt it, no one could ever eat it. And the Megatherium most likely went extinct because they were overhunted, because they were slow and they weren't all that aggressive. So early humans killed them off. If you've got a really remote, isolated population, isolated by, the Amazon basin, because there are little islands down there, not so little, but huge areas that are really, really, really difficult to get to, because even with helicopter, because of the jungle coverage and the swampy areas surrounding them. And you've got the only people in the area who don't hunt this animal that was hunted out of existence. You got kind of a perfect scenario for it to still be around.
Well, I know that, Pat, there's a theory that a lot of the megafauna really was hunted to extinction by, early man. I know that in New Zealand, I think there was some megafauna, and, certainly the Megatherium would fall into that category. But the Megatherium, from what I read, its skin was bony, so wouldn't that make it impervious to arrows or spears?
And, well, this is the other thing that was great about the people that we spoke with, because never having read any of these science books that we're, lucky enough to have access to, they would tell me that the Mapinguari, it's only sensitive in certain spots on its face and on its stomach, and by studying anatomy, we see that those are the spots that aren't, that would be vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just all ties together too well, and that's what I mean. I think you can kind of tell that I am the open-minded skeptic here, and heavy on the skeptic. And this really did. It's hard to deny when you're down there talking to these guys and you're seeing all the evidence and you're putting it together in your mind, and it's like, oh yeah, this all fits in.
Yeah.
Orang Pendek was another really interesting one.
That was in Sumatra, right?
Yes. Yep. So we were in Java and then in Sumatra.
Wow. Now, what made that interesting, Pat?
Well, I'm going to be speaking a lot about that at Creature Weekend.
Okay. So we won't let the cat out of the bag, but suffice to say that I'm sure that you'll remember those experiences for a long, long time to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely, all of them.
Billy, do we have any questions in the chat room?
Actually, I did see another one. I believe it was from Digger Dog. He was wanting to know if, and you may not be able to answer this, but how much film gets edited out of each episode?
Well, this is another one of the reasons why I love Icon. So many of the different projects that I've worked on and stuff, the host really is just that. Like, you show up, you're an expert in whatever it is that they're talking about, and you kind of give your thing, and then you go home. With Icon, I was able to be a part of almost all of it. I can't take any of the credit for the amazing editing staff that they've got, but the production company allowed me to be at least in the room and give some input on the direction that we were going in and stuff. And
that's great.
Oh, it was amazing. And I can tell you that we would film, we're on location for 15 days. We're usually sleeping for about 3 hours a night.
Wow.
While you're there, and filming basically the entire rest of the time. So there is massive amounts of footage that never makes it to air. And when you're watching the show, it's also now I start to see this more, but you pay attention to so much of what we call as B-roll, which is there's no person on screen talking. It's just really nice footage and interesting shots and things that kind of tie it together, where you're then doing voiceover over it. So the stuff that we film with me either talking to the camera or interacting is probably only, like a quarter of a show, maybe a quarter or a third of the show. The rest is this amazing footage with voiceover over it. Mm-hmm. So much of what we shoot, so much of what, the stories that we're hearing, the people that we're interviewing, the tribe in Brazil, we were with them for 5 or 6 days, that one particular tribe, and you see them for maybe 5 minutes.
Wow. So, Pat, how close do you think you were to actually seeing a Mapinguari?
That one, so there's another thing that you have all the best equipment, you're using the best stuff in the world, massively expensive, that I would never be able to afford on my own if I just went down there and did this. And we still, the human body, we're still better. Our eyes and ears are still better than what you can capture on this equipment. Yeah. And our sound guy and I, James, we were walking through at night and playing the call, and something called back. And it was exactly what Dr. Oren described as Dr. Oren's one of the kind of preeminent Mapinguari researchers down there. He by training he's an ornithologist, so study birds. He really has good ears. This guy, I would trust his ears over my dog's nose. I mean, he's good. And we're playing this call, and something called back, and James and I looked at each other and. Oh my God, that was it. And we start, doing it again, and we hear it again, and our equipment didn't pick it up, so it didn't really make it into the episode, but it was exactly the call that this expert described, and it really sounds like, because I've studied sloths. I've worked with 3- and 2-fingered sloths a number of times. Love them. You hear their calls, you hear their kind of mating calls, and it sounded like a lower-pitched version of that.
Wow.
It was wild, and we were right on. So to film in Brazil is a little bit of a hassle. You need a lot of, not just to film, but to go to the areas where we were, for good reason. I mean, you need to protect the tribes. We could accidentally give them any number of diseases, just from having contact with them. Mm-hmm. So we had permissions to go pretty deep in, but we were very, very respectful of the Brazilian government in not overstepping the bounds that they had given us. So we were on the edge of the uncontacted territories. If we had progressed any further, we would have been breaking the law. So that was kind of where we left it. But to get the permissions to go into the inner, it's so many more physical tests, and you have to be quarantined, and they have to test you. It's a lot more than we were able to do in the short time that we were there.
Right.
Wow.
And it's so important to be respectful of that. I mean, I'd hate to have anybody go down, because it's not like there's a fence. It's not like there's someone standing there telling you not to go any further. You just have to, you're kind of on your own honor. And I'd hate to see any Westerner go down and end up, doing some really horrific damage to these amazing people inadvertently. No one does it on purpose. But that's the last thing that we ever wanted to do.
Of course. Billy, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I kind of get a sense that I know what your favorite thing was, but just in case, what is the most interesting thing you've researched in Beast Hunter?
Man, it's so hard. Like, they really are amazing. I don't talk about Mongolia all that much, but that was phenomenal. It was just such a completely foreign and bizarre world. I mean, we literally stumbled on dinosaur eggs.
Wow.
Like,
really?
every
Wow.
8-year-old boy's dream.
Yeah.
We were walking around, and all of a sudden my producer just goes, "Hey, Pat, what's that?" And I walked over and I went, "It's a nest of dinosaur eggs." Just on the ground. I mean, so that was absolutely incredible. But being a marine biologist, getting to go down in that sub, and having the pilot of the sub tell me that there's less than 500 people in the world that have done that was that was just an experience that I will never, ever forget. My producer, who was a good friend of mine, this guy Ben Roy, who's also just a wild man, absolutely insane, wonderful, wonderful person. He and I were down in the sub together. It was me, him, and the pilot, and we were just giggling, like just so excited, and we were eating M&Ms down at the bottom looking out the window, and he just looked at me, and he punched my arm. He goes, "This is pretty cool." It was like, this guy has been everywhere you can think of. He's been, he's done these crazy undercover projects in like Afghanistan and Pakistan, and he's trips the highest mountains and just he's filmed plane to plane. I mean, he's done everything, and to have him just so excited, yeah, this is pretty cool.
That is neat.
Yeah, it was wild.
The closest I ever came, was I ate a 5-foot sub. There's probably less than 500 people in the world that could do that.
That's true, and that probably hurt a lot more than what I was doing.
Yeah, believe me, there were no winners.
Yeah.
Now, when you go out with all this equipment, Pat,
mm-hmm.
what and you come away, you're very well financed, and you come away with probably not as much evidence as you'd hoped for. What hope do us amateurs have when we go out looking for evidence?
Actually, a lot more than you would think, because it really is so, it's such kind of luck of the draw. I mean, you're there at the right moment, at the right time. I mean, I can tell you this from any field biology that you do. So I also film a web-based wildlife show called Nature Calls with my girlfriend and one of my best friends, Dom. And the three of us will go out there, and some days we find absolutely nothing, and other days we're just finding more snakes than the three of us can hold. So I encourage everyone to get out there and to do that, and it doesn't matter what kind of equipment you've got. As I said, your eyes and your ears are some of the best equipment that you could possibly ask for. And, just go out there and follow them, see what you can find. Hang out for a while. It pays to be very patient and very quiet. There was one time in Sumatra, I just stayed up in a tree for about 6 hours, just climbed a tree and stayed there completely by myself, had the crew leave, everyone was gone for that entire time, and just watched. And it was incredible what you saw. I mean, a troop of gibbons went by all in the trees. Tapirs were less than 20 feet from me. It was wild. So people really do have a good shot at finding some pretty amazing things.
Wow.
Well, did you see that question in the chat room, Bruce?
Which question was that, Billy?
They want me to ask Pat, has he ever seen the Harrington Beast?
Very nice.
We've talked to him.
So you get as much respect at work as I do.
Yeah, probably even less, Pat. Speaking of which, do your colleagues, how do they receive you traveling the world looking for creatures that may or may not exist? Do they make fun of you? Are they supportive?
It's really funny. It doesn't surprise anyone. It's just kind of how I've always been. I'm definitely, a little bit out there. I really enjoy life. I like to have a lot of fun, and I do the stuff that interests me. So when I first started, I guess, let me see. So I've always been that guy who is in the field, holding a rattlesnake, and you get a group of people gathered around you, or catching a jellyfish, or getting stung by, the bee that whatever it is. That's always been me. So you always have that crowd. And when I realized that, rogue biologist street performer doesn't exactly pay the bills, I started working in biotech. And it was a restrictive environment. I mean, I was in the most restrictive environment because we're making drugs that get injected into people. So you've got to be really cautious about that. There's no real thinking outside the box in that kind, which is a good thing. So I needed to do something to get the other side of myself, to have some fun. So I drove to Ohio to audition for a reality show called King of the Jungle 2 on Animal Planet.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I ended up getting that, and that made me enough contacts that I could keep going with this. So I keep the day job, and they've known about it since I started, that on the side I film these crazy wildlife shows with my friends. We put them up on YouTube, and occasionally a network will call me and ask me to do one for them.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it was the first 6 years I was doing it, I got myself ridiculously in debt, just maxed out every credit card I could get, flying us all over the place to film this wildlife show, but loved every second of it. And just had so much fun doing it that a few times I'd get calls from seeing the YouTube channel. Nat Geo would call, or Animal Planet, or Discovery, and you'd film a little something here and there for them, but nothing really made it to the air until Beast Hunter, which was the kind of brainchild of National Geographic and a man named Harry Marshall, who's the head of Icon, and one of my favorite people on Earth.
Now, when you list your favorite animals, among them is the three-fingered sloth,
mm-hmm.
the giant squid,
mm-hmm.
and the water monitor. Now, that seems like kind of, a mishmash of animals.
Absolutely.
How do those make it into your favorite list?
Well, the giant squid, ever since I was a little kid, so I can remember, you were talking about the cryptozoology book you read. Mine, I know Bigfoot was on the cover, but the thing that stood out the most in my mind was the Kraken.
Oh,
and
sure.
It was, this mythical creature, and then I remember it must have been a David Attenborough, because that's all that I watched when I was younger. But I remember they didn't have footage of it, but they showed this image, and it was a drawing of first a human scuba diver, and then a sperm whale, and then a giant squid. And I remember grabbing my parents, I must have been 6 years old, and going, that's a Kraken, that's a Kraken. And they're like, all right, yeah, very good. Like, but it's real, it's there, I need to see this. So that just became my absolute obsession, and I studied squid and found that they were so fascinating. I mean, the giant neuron, the huge eyes, the intelligence, the amount that they grow in such a short lifespan, their problem-solving capabilities, their abilities to swim mazes, to teach each other, just fascinated me. So I was hooked with as soon as I started hearing about this giant squid. And then there's multiple species of them. There's the colossal squid, and there's two different giant. So that was that. The sloths, I always thought they were kind of neat, and then I went down and studied them for the first time down in Costa Rica, and they just blew me away. They're some of the coolest animals they have their own ecosystem. They're a walking ecosystem. They grow algae on their back, which prevents predators from recognizing that they're an animal. They just think that it's more, tree or more of the tree. When they're up there, they move really slowly to conserve energy. They're almost reptilian in the way that they absorb energy from the sun. They warm up, then they can move a little bit more. They're adapted to eating poisonous leaves that would kill almost anything else, and they can do it. And there's just something intelligent about them. When you hold a sloth, it's very similar to working with primates. They're one of the only animals that I've ever worked with that was non-primate that has some genuine intelligence in its eyes.
I watched a show once, Pat, now that you mentioned that, and I'm wanting to say it's somewhere near that area. There's like an island somewhere not far from the Panama Canal where there's an island, and it's just plumb full of all types of exotic creatures. and the sloth is one of the ones on the island. And I was watching a show with a guy. It's just amazing how they just let this guy would climb up on a rope into the tree, just grab it and bring it down, and it was just like, it was just hanging out.
Yeah.
No worries in the world.
The two-fingered sloths will they'll try to bite you, but if you get attacked by a sloth, it is 100% your fault. They are not moving very fast. But the three-fingered sloths, even the wild ones, it's like when you walk by, they reach out to you like, hold me, just pick me up. They're just awesome. They're really incredible. And like I said, there's definitely intelligence behind their eyes. And the sanctuary that I was working on for a little while down in Costa Rica, they have this whole, story that they tell about how much we can learn from a sloth, about, respecting our neighbors and chewing your food, and they tell it to all the little kids there, and it's really cute, but it's also true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brandon had a good question. He wanted to know, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like your life was in danger?
Many times. Many times. My mom and my girlfriend are experts at handling calls from the hospital. I've been bitten and stung by just about everything you can think of. I mean, not just the bullet ants. There was a rabid raccoon, rattlesnake. Some of the scariest situations are actually just the traveling. We are in some cars that you would, never ever think to ever step foot in, much less travel hundreds of miles in. We've had cars light on fire while we were in them. I've had, you can smell gas and there's sparks coming off the dashboard. We've gone over cliffs and, come close to rolling, and this is hundreds of miles away from anything. Can't even get sat phone reception.
Wow.
We had some very angry men in Cameroon, I think it might have been the Central African Republic, approach the car with machetes and tell us all that we were going to have to pay in order to get out of there.
Oh.
It's there's more than I can express situations when you're really feeling like this might be the end.
Wow.
But it all becomes after a beer that night, it becomes a funny story. So.
Yeah, you can sit back and laugh about it now.
Yeah. As soon as one time we were tooling down this river. It was a tributary off the Congo River, and I think we were in Congo, which, there's a whole story about that. But we're flying down the river in the middle of the night, and the boatman insists that he doesn't need a light. I know this river, like the back of my hand, and no, you'll give me night blindness. I don't know why, but he wouldn't take a light. We smashed into an island, and everyone just, equipment, everything else just flies off. And it's like just the most ridiculous thing. And everyone's just swearing and angry and lying on the ground. And, but then you get to wherever you're going, you have a warm beer, and you're like, all right, that's all right. It could have been worse.
Pat, did you see any sign of the Mokele Mbembe?
Any sign?
Any sign, any tracks, or any?
No. In the area where we were, tracks, it just wasn't going to happen. Like, there wasn't the kind of muddy bank, and that's kind of what you find as you get out to a lot of the places. The tracks are really, really hard. The guys who live in this area, the different tribes, they can pick stuff out that to me is completely meaningless, that I would never, the way this branch is broken shows me that a 200-pound kudu just tracked. It's like, I don't know how they know that. They could be making it up, but it sounds really amazing. But for us, the closest we came was that call.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine who is now departed. His name was Scott Norman, and he actually made that trip out to, I believe it was either the Cameroon or the Congo, to look for the Mokele Mbembe. And for those, who don't know, the Mokele Mbembe is reputed to be a brontosaurus-like creature. Am I right, Pat?
Yep.
And he actually went out there with James Kirk and Dr. Gibbons.
Yep.
And the stories he has are absolutely phenomenal. But they really didn't see anything there. They found the fruit that this creature supposedly eats. They explored the habitat where it was seen, but they never did really never did see anything.
Yeah, we found the fruit. We were all around the supposedly, the deadly, I forget the amazing for TV name that they have for this area where the animal supposedly lives. But it was a gorgeous spot. There were some very friendly people. We lived with 2 different pygmy tribes down there at different points. Saw some amazing things. I mean, they were believable in a lot of the things that they said, but I really, at the end of the day, do have to think that the Mokele and Mbembe, at least in the areas where we were, now we didn't make it to Lake Teli in the Congo, but in the areas where we were with the Baka and Bayaka, I do believe that it's kind of a combination of this is a story that our ancestors have passed down and that we want to keep going, and occasional mistaken identity in this region. I mean, these guys, there's something real to be said for the pride that someone in a particular lifestyle, in a hunter-gatherer kind of lifestyle, that they have for the individuals, for the elders of the tribe. And most of the fishermen in these tribes can't swim. And a tipped over canoe is one of the most terrifying concepts to them. Just the idea that a canoe can tip over and everyone on it will die frightens them immensely, as it would if that's your daily activities. And when you hear about this very, very well respected man, one of the elders of the tribe, dying because they hit a rock, or even a rhino tipped them over, it's anticlimactic. But if Mokele Mbembe did it, he died, because this creature, no, there's nothing he could have done. Of course he died because Mokele Mbembe.
Wow.
Yep. Well, my Pat, obviously I'm a Bigfoot researcher. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question will be, how do you feel about that? Do you believe Sasquatch could exist?
I believe that it could. Yeah, I think could is the key word there. I think that there is some really, really compelling evidence. I love Dr. Meldrum's work. Definitely follow that a lot. There's so many sightings. I do tend to stick to the Pacific Northwest for that. Mm-hmm. I tend to be a little bit more distrustful of the things that happen in the southern portion of the U.S. and Texas and that sort of thing. But in the Pacific Northwest, the time that I spent in Vancouver and lived with a native Canadian tribe up there who had some phenomenal stories about Sasquatch and what they were, this does exist. Like, there was no question in their mind. It was like, do you believe that dogs exist? When I was talking to them about Sasquatch, it was just a known thing,
right,
that this is there. And I absolutely am open to it.
I guess another question I'd like to ask you is, there seems to be a lot of sightings when you speak of the East Coast. Of course, New York, up and around the Adirondacks. Of course, Pennsylvania, you get a lot. Ohio, you get a lot. But you hear a lot of other biologists that say that they don't believe there's enough food supply for a creature like that. What do you think?
Oh, there's definitely enough food supply. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, there's absolutely enough food supply. The question is, could it remain hidden? And if you've got a nocturnal animal that doesn't use trails, yeah, it could remain hidden.
Yeah.
But even with that, even a nocturnal animal that's not using trails on the East Coast, I grew up all around the Adirondacks, was out there a lot. I think it's tough to believe that there's a large enough population to be sustaining, to have a sustainable population there. Whereas in the Pacific Northwest, I have no difficulty in accepting that.
Right. Well, we're down to about 90 seconds already.
Do you want to just go over just a couple of conferences before we continue with Pat?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me get over here to my conference thing. As a matter of fact, there's one coming up really soon, as soon as my website opens up here. We have coming up is an event that Doug Waller's putting on April 6th, 2013, The Unexplained Bigfoot, UFOs, and Paranormal Activities, That's taking place at Crossroads Branch Library at 63500 Byesville Road in Cambridge, Ohio. So if you can get to that, that'll be a nice one. April 26th, 27th, and 28th, we have the 2013 Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo. That's also going to be exciting. And then, of course, we can't leave out Creature Weekend, where Pat will be there, May 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2013. That's also at Salt Fork State Park in Ohio. And before we go off live, I'd like to say thanks for everyone listening tonight, and we are going to continue in archives.
Thanks,
all right.
Billy.
You're welcome. All right.
Pat, is it true that you kept a venomous snake in your house and then lied to your family about how lethal that snake was?
Oh, I lied to them about what it was. I told my mom that it was a wood snake, which doesn't exist. So, yes. Yes, I did. And then she went down in the basement with one of my guidebooks, and she's flipping through, and I heard, Patrick, this has a triangle-shaped head. I was like, oh, God. Yeah, I was every parent's dream. I bred poisonous spiders at one point. I ran in the water after sharks on a family vacation. All kinds of fun stuff.
Well, you're an interesting individual to vacation with, I can imagine.
I like to have fun. Hey, my girlfriend comes with me on a lot of this stuff. She loves it too.
Well, that's great that you can find someone who enjoys the same passions that you do regarding cryptozoology and traveling. Because a lot of times, you end up with a spouse or a significant other who is, well, I'm not going out in the woods, or making it difficult.
Yeah, I don't think that would have worked with me. Yeah, no, we've been together 12 years, and she's amazing. I mean, she's right there with me in Costa Rica, pulling snakes out of the trees and caimans out of the water, and yeah.
She sounds like a keeper pet, definitely.
Absolutely.
Now, you do some charity work as well, do you not?
I do, yeah. So I volunteer with a few different cancer organizations. With the American Cancer Society and Stupid Cancer currently are the ones that I'm working with. And American Cancer Society has been absolutely amazing to me and to so many other people through their donations with Relay for Life, the rides, the program where they'll drive people to chemo, and just the information that they gather for people who are going through similar things to what I went through. And Stupid Cancer is a great organization that's targeted at young adults with cancer, which is kind of the forgotten population. So you hear about a lot of kids and a lot of older people getting this disease, but you don't really hear about the people in their 20s to late 30s getting diagnosed with this, and that's what Stupid Cancer focuses on.
Right.
Are there any upcoming events for either of those that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, actually, there is. There's Stupid Cancer is doing a kickoff for. Let me see. They're going to drive across country and raise awareness in all different states, and that's kicking off in Massachusetts, in Boston. I want to say next week. I think the 11th, around there. And the American Cancer Society is starting to kick off relay season. So you'll hear about local Relay for Life events all over the place. And I'm speaking at a number of them in Massachusetts and New York. And they're just a really great chance to kind of go and connect with other people in the community who have dealt with this disease and learn some tips about chemo. It really helped me get through a lot, and just show your support, because everybody's lives have been touched by cancer in some way. And it's a really fun event for the whole family. Lots of stuff happens at all of them. I've been to a couple dozen relay events, and they're all different, but they're all great.
Wow. I know Billy can vouch for this, but a lot of the fans who commented or sent in questions were, very supportive of your efforts with your charity organization, and were genuinely concerned about you and are hoping that you do get back, on TV with your program.
Oh, thank you very much. I would absolutely love to, and I am still working with Icon. We've recently filmed a couple little pilots here and there, and have a lot of interest from a couple different networks. In fact, I just found something out today that sounds very promising, so I've got my fingers crossed, but can't say anything more about it right now.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. I'm sorry,
Thank
Billy.
You.
I said that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I really would love to see Beast Hunter come back on because the first show that I watched was actually the Bullet Ant show, and my wife, who could care less about cryptozoology, actually enjoyed watching your show.
Thank you very much.
She can't stand watching Finding Bigfoot. She can't stand any of the other shows, but she loves to watch your show.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Please thank her for me.
I will do that. Well, she'll be there, so you can.
Oh, excellent. That's great.
I'm sure she's going to want to talk to you. So.
Oh, definitely. Looking forward to it.
But me and Bruce are hoping that one day we're going to have a comedy show about Bigfoot.
All right, very good. I'd watch that.
I think that's what we're going to end up with, whether we want one or not, Billy.
No, it's and I'm sure you know this, Pat. When you're out in the field, you have a good time.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many jokes that go back and forth, and crazy things that you say to each other. Can you imagine just filming that and putting a show? I think a lot of people would like it. I really do. That's
actually what Nature Calls is.
There you go.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, that's the web show that I do with. If you check out naturecalls.tv.
Okay.
You'll see it's exactly that. It's the reality of what it's like to film a nature show. Like, yeah, we catch some really amazing animals. We do some crazy stuff, but it's really me, Dom, and Anna just goofing around in the woods finding these different animals. And it's lots of jokes, lots of, just kind of insane, sleep-deprived humor.
Oh, that's great.
That is. I'm going to check that out now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we drove up to Manitoba for the snake dens last year. That was so the Creature Weekend's actually my birthday weekend this year. And last year we were up in got in the car, drove 36 hours to Manitoba, stayed for 22 and then drove back.
Wow.
Straight through, because that's where the snake dens are, the largest concentration of snakes anywhere on Earth.
Uh-oh, does me and Pat share a birthday?
May 2nd.
Okay, I'm 2 days later.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. We'll have to celebrate.
There you go. We're good at that, right, Bruce?
Drinks around Billy.
What? Oh, boy. Well, it's been great.
It has been great.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
You've been a great guest, Pat. I just want to thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm hoping I'll be able to forward this around to people once it's ready for download, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it'll actually archive about 10 minutes after we get off the show. So.
Okay. Excellent.
And I think I put a link on your Facebook page actually. So.
Oh, I am so bad at social media. I'm so sorry. Yeah, this is absolutely something that Dom is incredible with. He's the main camera and sound and every electronic stuff who I work with. He's a professional photographer, and he's also really good at all the social media stuff. But I am just.
Well, Bruce,
I'm not there.
Bruce, you could actually send him a link to it on his email.
I could, yeah.
That would be great. I'm good with email.
Yeah. But Pat, you're probably ahead of me. I don't even have a Facebook page.
Oh, I only have one for Nature Calls and Beast Hunter. I don't have a personal one or anything like that. And everything I do for Instagram and Twitter and all that is just for promotion stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love it. Like, I love taking pictures. I love being out there, and like, I like a lot of the messages that I get when I find my way to them. But I just am. I don't think I've even logged on to Facebook in close to a year.
Actually, you're right, Pat. Because I noticed that you hadn't been active since March of last year.
Yeah, it automatically posts. Like, whenever I put something on Instagram, it posts to Twitter and Facebook. Somehow, someone else set that up for me.
Right.
But yeah, it's just I don't know. It's one of those things that just slid off the map for me.
I understand. Times get busy. You ain't got time for it either. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Pat, for being on the show. You were a great guest. We really enjoyed it.
Oh, I had a really good time. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, I hope you can come on the show again, Pat. It was very interesting talking to you and very entertaining.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for being on. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the show tonight. And we will see everybody next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
You're listening to Sasquatch Watch Radio on the Blog Talk Radio Network. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Remember to join us again next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate every one of our listeners. Thank you so much for being here.